Everybody, Tom here with Hidden Beats, and today we're talking with Jerry Sereda. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. A proud Canadian, but it's when the winter kicks in, I can't wait for the snow to melt and get back out there to be able to hang out with friends outside. I do love being indoors, but there's something about being outside and connecting with nature and being able to do it in bare feet and t-shirts. That's my jam.
Mm-hmm. I hate wearing sleeves, so I'm the guy who's like the shorts and t-shirt type of thing all year round.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. That's same here.
Mm-hmm. So for those who are new to you and your music, can you give us a little bit of a intro about kind of who you are and what you bring to the table?
Sure. I'm an indigenous country music artist from Treaty One territory. I was born just north of Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I've spent most of my life here. Lived out in Calgary, Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta for the last couple of years, and I just recently came back to Manitoba. I started singing probably back in 2000. Well, I started singing when I was a kid, but I only really got the nerve up to sing when I was in my 20s. And that's also when I picked up the guitar. I was working on the road for the power electric company here in Manitoba as a summer job. And we often had our evenings to do whatever we wanted. So I took the guitar along with me and I taught myself to play a few songs, and one song led to another, and eventually I started recording and I've never looked back.
No, that sounds like some fun for sure. Do you remember like your first album or something that you bought that kind of got you really into the idea of pursuing a music career?
I don't think it was so much of an album, actually. I was always big into my music. My family was always big into music growing up. A lot of my relatives played instruments and sang songs. I really decided myself that I wanted to go into becoming a recording artist when I was at a country music festival, and I was just walking through the crowd looking for the people that I was there with, and it just like it was yesterday, it was actually Dirks Bentley that was on the stage, and he started singing and putting on one heck of a good show, and I was mesmerized. I must have stood in the same place for about 45 minutes before I realized I don't even think I closed my mouth. It was just like,
Yeah.
and then I just said, that is awesome that he can be that captivating and entertaining. I was always a big fan of Garth Brooks uh, growing up. So I knew of that high energy performance, but it's one thing to see it on, I guess back then it was a DVD, uh, and then seeing it in person and being a part of the energy that's in that crowd, because you can watch a live performance on TV, but being a part of that performance, being either on the stage or in the crowd, has a different energy level to it. And that's something that I'll never forget. And I definitely learned what the power of a good show can do to captivate and energize an audience, and that they will never forget that. So I've always that kept that in the back of my head, and that's what pushed me into entertainment. I also remember, um, and I'm sorry if there's Tim McGraw fans out there, but I remember seeing Tim McGraw at a music festival, and he just didn't seem into it. He just didn't seem energized. And I walked away. I was kind of upset and disheartened, brokenhearted. Uh, but luckily, and this is why I say I'm not trying to offend Tim McGraw fans, because I ended up catching him at a show the same summer at a different country concert, and it was night and day. The guy
Mhm.
blew me away, and I was like, wow. And my friend who was with me at the first concert was at this concert as well. And we just looked at each other and shrugged our shoulders and said, forgiven.
Yeah.
But it really everybody has tough days, but as an entertainer, you really have to realize that for some people that might be the one shot that you have to make an impression on them. And it's sometimes hard to leave all that goes on in your life at the door, and walk in with a clean slate and focus on the crowd. But I I make sure that happens. I I'll always remember what I felt like when I walked away from watching an entertainer not be at the best of his performance.
I mean, I cover music festivals a lot during with what I do, and um, that story reminds me actually of recently at the Boots and Hearts Festival with Florida Georgia Line. It was kind of
Mm.
their final tour or their final batch of shows, and you could actually see them on stage, not exactly vibing with each other. Like it just wasn't exactly what you would expect from one of their shows. And I get that feeling, like you just said. It's you have that one impression. That's the first time I've ever seen it live. So my impression of them live now shows a little bit of lackluster type of performance from
Yeah.
them, even though they're great artists together and have their fun. But it was what it was.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, everybody sometimes it's unavoidable. You never really know what's going on in somebody's life. So,
Hmm.
but at least now when I see a performance that I think could have been a bit better, wasn't quite what I was expecting. I always keep that in the back of my head and say, you never really know what somebody else is dealing with. And it is tough to leave all that stuff and walk out there and be happy and smiling when who knows what just happened to you that day or that week or that year.
100%. And when you get to meet people more and more, and I've got to talk to a lot of artists, and everyone has their own things going on. Like you said, it's hard to tell exactly who's in what type of situation at that point.
Yeah.
But we'll get on to some lighter notes here. And one of the main reasons we're here to talk today is about your new single Lighthouse, which I believe is out now, or it's coming out.
It's out now. It came out May 15th, and
Okay.
it's out on radio and streaming media, so people can check it out. And the music video is just in its final stages right now, so that will be coming out shortly as well.
I think that's what I had in my original email, was the information with the music video, so I was confusing the dates there. But
Yeah,
can
yeah.
you tell us the story behind Lighthouse a bit?
Well, we I started working with a producer out in Calgary. Um, his name's Troy Kokel. I'd worked with quite a few producers in Manitoba, and I was loving what they were doing, but I was just kind of looking for a little bit of a different vibe. So uh, I kind of looked around and talked to different people, and actually, we started out. Gord Bamford was going to produce my record, but then between me doing shows and him doing shows and both of us trying to record, we just couldn't get the dates to line up. So because I was already thinking about kind of out west from Manitoba, I reached out to Troy Kokel. I'd known him as a songwriter for a very long time, and I just said, "Do you know anybody who might be looking to produce out your way?" And he actually said, "Well," he said, "if you don't mind me throwing my hat in the ring," he's like, "I like to give it a go." I said, "Sure." So we started working, and we did a couple songs together, and I really liked the direction that the music was going. And then uh not only that, but he just he's such a nice guy to work with. He's like one of the sweetest people I've ever met. And so we started talking, well, what next? Because I had a few songs that I came to him with, and he said, well, let's try writing a few. So we sat down and we started writing once a week together, and it was going okay, but we weren't really getting the productivity that we wanted. So finally Troy had this idea. He said, why don't you come to Calgary and spend the whole weekend here? I'll get a whole bunch of my writer friends together, and we'll sit you down and we'll see how that goes. So what we did is I came down, and we'd have breakfast together, and we'd write songs from breakfast until lunchtime. And then we'd eat lunch together, and then after lunch we would switch the writers, and I would write with a different pool of people. And we did this for 3 days, and at the end of 3 days I had 6 songs. So we did a few more of these writing camps, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And one of the times in one of those writing camps, it was an afternoon session, instead of writing with Troy this time, I was writing with Joni Delorier and Chris O'Neill. And we start out by just talking about, do you have any ideas that you're tossing around? And I had this idea of a lighthouse. And I grew up, my family in Manitoba. My grandparents came from a small community that was full of commercial fishermen. So fishing was really big in my family, and we had lighthouses on Lake Manitoba that I remember very fondly when I was growing up. But something about that lighthouse, giving you that comfort, that sense of direction when it's pitch black and the waves are massive, and you're worried you're going to run into something, you're worried your boat's going to flip. And for me, you know, that's always been symbolic of relationships, either with partners or with family. And we always have those people in our lives that when we don't believe in ourselves, or when we're faltering, or when we just don't seem to know where our strengths are, where to go, there's those people that pull us back in. They put us, they calm us down, they set us on the right path, on the right direction. And I started talking to them about that idea, and they loved it. We went with it, and I've never been more proud of how a song has turned out, because it meant a lot to me, and I think we delivered the message as powerfully as I had as envisioned it, I suppose.
I got to listen to it when I was preparing a bit for the interview, and I love like the flow and the feel of it, and just you do have emotion and story behind it. Like you can sense all that within the actual song itself. So I'm new to your music, but that definitely right there gave me an insight to who you are as a musician, and I'm definitely going to be listening to more of your stuff for sure.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think I've evolved into I always when I first started out in music, I was actually I released an independent album, and then before we got to album 2, I was scooped up by MDM Recordings and Universal Music. And you know, we we had some pretty country rocky songs in the realm of like Eric Church. In fact, he was a co-writer on one of the first songs that I released commercially with a record label. And like Jason Aldean vibes. Um, and that's kind of who I was. I was that guy singing about like the morning after the night before, and that'll get you drinking. And live it up and drink it down. But I feel that over the years, I've evolved into a person myself. And when I say that, some of my really close friends laugh, and they say, for a short period of time there, I had this tough rocker country image, and they said, we get it, but to us, you're always the gentle giant, the gentle cowboy. And I think I've evolved back into that. I think I've really, since I branched out on my own and went independent, and I don't have people steering me kind of towards that target. I think Troy and I had a lot of conversations about who I wanted to be as an artist, and what that looks like, what that sounds like. And Troy and I made an agreement. We said, as long as we're making music that we both smile when we're doing it, and it's not a chore, we're just going to keep experimenting with different styles of songs. They're all in the country vibe, but this is definitely the first song I've released that I would, to me, it's a ballad, but
Hmm.
it's tempo wise, it still fits into that kind of mid-tempo pocket. And we actually made a few adjustments just before we released it to give it just a bit more of a vibe, so what didn't seem slow and laggy. And that's why I love working with Troy. He's got these great ideas, and he comes to me with them and says, "What do you think of this?" And I think he's helping shape me into somebody who understands music that I want to record, that I want to write. And so it's an evolving process. But I love that my fans have been with me since the beginning, and they've evolved with me. And you know that means a lot to me. It really does.
Yeah, for sure. And music is all about storytelling anyways, so being able to connect with people and have fans kind of move through your career with you and listen to your stories is probably pretty endearing, I would think.
You know, it's awesome. The fans that I continue to see at shows, you know, I I almost find it hard to call them fans. They're friends. They've become
Mhm.
friends, and you know, I enjoy seeing them. I enjoy singing my new stuff to them when we come to their towns, and I enjoy hearing about what's went on in their lives since the last time we chatted. And um, it's really a humbling experience to know that, you know, we're growing together as people, and they're still supporting my music and still coming to my shows. And I'll therefore I don't have fans. I have friends, and I'm glad they're out there, and I'm glad I'm getting new friends all the time. And I always say I can't wait to meet people. So if you come to one of my shows, please track me down after the show's over. Come up, say hi, come take some pictures. Come let me know who you are. That's very important to me because, as I said earlier, when I go up on stage to do a show, that's a collective experience that I'm sharing with the group of people that's there at the time. And I can do one show on Friday and one show on Saturday, and the vibe changes because the people in in the building change, and I love it. It's so wonderful to be having those experiences with people.
Mhm, for sure. And being an indigenous person yourself, how important is it to have indigenous culture and music in your music?
I'm uh I'm a proud indigenous person, and storytelling has always been a traditional form um within our culture that we pass knowledge on. Um and I think that's why my music is evolving to something like Lighthouse that talks about those issues. And Lighthouse isn't just about it's a way to remind people that there are those around you who support you, who protect you, who love you, and want the best version of you all the time. So, you know, it's my way of passing on some knowledge and reminding people how important relationships are and how important music is for health and for mental well-being.
Mhm. Is there any routine or something that you do to keep yourself grounded when you're trying to center yourself in your music world?
It's it's just picking up my guitar and playing the songs that I love because I always practice my stuff, but there's a ton of songs that I grew up with, and each of them has a special place in my heart and a special story. I know my dad's favorite song. I know my grandpa's favorite song. I know my mom's favorite song. Um, and to just play those songs when they're not around me, that's kind of my grounding element. That takes me back to those times that we'd be sitting in the vehicles, going on a road trip, singing, um enjoying our favorite songs. And that it's really I like to keep a good uh mental balance. uh I spent a lot of years as a high school and middle school teacher and guidance counselor. And I've always I learned to be a lifelong learner, and I learned uh to be supportive of others and to be encouraging. So, and I've also realized how important that mental health component is. The song we released just before um last year, actually, at around this time, was a song called uh Back Road Therapy. And when people ask me about that song, to me, Back Road Therapy was what I grew up knowing, because I grew up being a country boy. And when we'd have some problems, we'd grab a few friends, grab a six pack, head out to the end of the road, sit by a creek, maybe do some fishing, have a beverage. But I lost all that when I moved into the city life. There wasn't those back roads as close to me anymore. Um, but I learned again. during the pandemic when I couldn't go and sit down with my friend, or I couldn't go out and hang out with people, I went back to that reconnection. I went back to jumping in my truck and just going for a drive through the countryside, and the therapeutic nature of just being in nature, it was so revitalizing. Um,
Hmm.
and it just, it's about knowing how to get away from those stressors in life and how to recenter yourself. And you know, that's my therapy. Be music and nature, and you know, being around good people, positive people. That's therapeutic, and everybody needs that.
Yeah, definitely everybody needs a little bit of rest and relaxation between, and just calmness in their lives, because there's so much out there that's just everywhere. Like, it stresses you from one end or the other. It doesn't matter. So I could definitely appreciate that sense of calmness. Now, another question I have, which is actually I'd like to ask this because it's always interesting, is what's your opinion on the music scene around like Winnipeg and Manitoba?
Winnipeg and Manitoba, it's a really great music scene. You know, I feel that we as artists all bond together and work together. Um, but it's, you know, it's pretty much the center of Canada. So as people tour back and forth, we get everybody stopping in here, and it's I think it's alive and thriving. And we also learned a lot of skills during the pandemic that helps us, you know, branch out and stay connected in new ways that we didn't have before the pandemic. So, you know, I again, an awful couple of years, but I know a few positives that have come out of it.
Hmm.
But if you ever come to Winnipeg, you want to talk about a diverse music scene. We're alive and thriving in country and rock and hip hop and pop and alternative forms, reggae and world music, and we have a a large base of indigenous artists, and that hub itself connects us through all of North America, right from, you know, east to west coast, all the way from the Northwest Territories and the Yukon, all the way down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I think we have a great network, and everybody gets up here every now and then.
Hmm. I've actually got one of the Hidden Beats team members is actually stationed in Winnipeg, and he
Oh,
covers
really?
shows for us out there pretty frequently. So I get to see some of the stuff. I've been out a couple times myself too to check out some different things. But yeah, Winnipeg's a fun place to get some interesting and diverse music out of, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is, and we always have a lot of multicultural events going on here that also lend themselves to music from around the world. Right, like we have our folklorama that runs for 2 weeks every summer, and each um, I guess nation or group of people from around the world, you know, they set up pavilions and they invite you to come down and taste their, you know, their cultural food and their cultural see their cultural traditions from dancing to, you know, if you go to something like the Brazilian, they'll even throw in some martial arts like the jiu-jitsu.
Mm,
But
nice.
each of them comes with their own world music too, and that's the part that I love because it's so awesome to sit down and experience the music from another culture.
Hmm. Is there any artist out of the Manitoba area that you think should be on more people's radars that's not on enough?
You know, I grew up, there's an indigenous artist here. Uh, his name is Nelson Little. We've written songs together, we've shared the stage together, but I also went to high school with him. And as much as I say I wanted to be a recording artist because I saw, you know, a show and it changed me, I also do remember very, very strongly um, being around him when we were teenagers and we'd go to different events. Um, People would be doing their own thing at somebody's place, and all of a sudden Nelson would pull out his guitar, and everybody, and I mean everybody, would gather around this guy and just listen to him play uh country and rock and pop songs. And I just remember standing there saying, this guy is so cool. I
Hmm.
can't, I have to learn guitar so I can do this, because that's pretty cool. And he's kind of I would say he's like Charlie Major meets rock and roll. He's just a cool fusion of like Corb Lund and Steve Earle, and
Okay.
really interesting guy and great music. Definitely worth checking out. Say Nelson Little, Manitoba.
All right. Well, definitely. I mean, I like questions like that because it gives me more people to check out, add to my playlist, things like that.
Yeah.
So I have a couple last questions that are probably the most important, I think, out of everything. First one is, what motivates you to keep pursuing this music career?
The love of music. I'm I don't know. I doubt I'll ever be a millionaire because of music, but I do it because I love it. I did it full time when I was teaching full time as well, when I was counseling full time. It was my way to reconnect with something that I love, and to keep those stories going. For me, writing songs is therapy, because I take some of those things, I get to put them down on paper, I get to listen to them, I get to actually see them, and then when I release them to the world, I get to share that piece of myself with the world. And I don't think there's anything greater than that.
That makes sense. And music is the stuff that binds people together, even beyond language and stuff. Just having playing an instrument sometimes has
Yeah.
that connection to everyone. My last question for you: what do you hope people take away from your music?
I hope people find a song they can connect with. We have quite a few songs out there that really reach out to the emotional parts of your heart and your mind, and hope that they help you through something that you're maybe you're struggling with, or maybe you find a lyric of ours that helps you in some way. Um, so I always hope for that. But I'm a country musician, and I also have a lot of songs about drinking and partying. So if you can't connect with something emotional, you know what? I hope it gets your toes tapping, and gets you to raise one with your friends and your besties.
No, that's awesome. And everyone is going to take something a little bit different, but there's always something I think that someone's going to be able to pull from a good song.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's pretty much all I have written down. And I mean, we would have had probably a little bit more time, I'm sure, barring those technical difficulties at the start. But I'm
Well,
definitely glad
that's
I got to meet you and get a little bit more insight to who you are as an artist.
you know what, the pleasure's all mine. It's great to connect with you. I'm honored to be a part of your program. And if people want to know more about me, I do encourage them to check out www.jerrysereda.com. And they can connect with me on any social media form there. We have our Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and I think I still have a MySpace.
Nice.
Yeah, so feel free to check out my music. Everything is available on my website. To listen to the entire song for my entire catalog, they can listen to it for free. There's a few they can download for free if they feel like making a small donation. It's always appreciated. But if you have any questions or concerns, please shoot us a message, and I will get back to you. I love hearing from you. Even if you just tell me to get a different color cowboy hat, that's okay too.
Well, I'll make sure that I link everything in the description of the video. That way it's a little bit easier for people to find. And I'm hoping we're gonna have another conversation at some point. It's always good to catch up with friends and see what's going on in their lives.
I would absolutely love that anytime.
Awesome. Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening. I guess it's 5:30 here, so yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we're going to be looking out for that music video coming out soon.
Thank you very much. It should be out in the next couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Have a good one.